In New Jersey today, Governor Chris Christie was again doing what he does best, holding court at a town hall in Christie Country, Ocean County. Christie highlighted Sandy recovery efforts, though some did criticize, saying the governor botched that recovery, and no one inside the town hall mentioned Bridgegate or the other Christie scandals. Of course, that doesn't mean the scandals are going anywhere, and some recent headlines point to the possibility of even more political headaches for the governor. The Record reporting this week of a plan hashed by Christie appointees to the Port Authority that the agency would float the idea of a large toll increase on Hudson River crossings so that Governors Christie and Cuomo could swoop in and lower them, not to mention collect the political points lowering those tolls would bring. But the Record specifically states that none of the New York leaders at the Port Authority were involved in that process. Also from the Times, where the federal prosecutors are zeroing in on top Christie aides, in particular former Christie campaign chairman Bill Stepien, even going so far as to question his landlord about his conduct and character. The paper indicating the federal investigation may be less focused on Bridgegate and more on the allegations from Hoboken Mayor Dawn Zimmer that the governor's office threatened to withhold or reduce Sandy recovery money unless she okayed a development deal that would have benefited friends and allies of Governor Christie. One of those friends and allies, former state attorney general and Christie's appointee as chairman of the Port Authority, David Sampson, center stage in another Times piece which outlined billions of dollars in public works contracts that went to Sampson-connected firms, contracts that came from both Trenton and the Port Authority that Sampson was and is still running. Even Sampson voting for and pushing those deals without revealing the obvious conflicts of interests or recusing himself from the process. This may be business as usual when it comes to politics. There's an awful lot of deals going to friends of the governor or people who are positioned in high places. Is there enough here that it begins to bog down Chris Christie, both going forward in New Jersey? I know we've asked this question before with Bridgegate, but these other investigations as well. It seems like every time Christie tries to pull out from underneath the weight of these scandals, something else comes up that would drag him back down.
He's not trying to pull out of this. He's just continuing business as usual. He's doing the town halls and so forth. What I've said on this show and others is basically the biggest problem he has is that anytime there can be a subpoena dropped, anytime there can be information leaked, anytime there can be indictments of people that used to work for him, he has no control over that calendar, and that's the biggest thing at this point. There's no digging out. It's just a cloud hanging over his head.
The biggest thing is what actually happened. The tactics, the day-to-day ebb and flow is one thing, but if Sampson was involved in influence peddling on this bigger scale, if that toll increase, and I suggest that's where the focus is going to be.
The toll increase.
The toll increase is as bad and as transparently political as it seems now that we're beginning to learn it is. Those things are just going to unwind. And in the end, it's the truth that's going to either crush Chris Christie or let him go free.
Well, Richard, you are an expert in authorities. I understand that, and I'm not going to question that. So the reality here, I would think, is that if there are appointees from any governor, any public official, for any boards ever, those men and women are supposed to act independent, but at the same time, the governor or other officials that appoint them can put pressure on them and say, this is what I want you to do. Publicly, they can even do it, not even behind the scenes. And what I'm getting at is this. If they're going to raise tolls $1, the governor can bang his fist on the table and say, no, get it 50 cents. If they're going to raise it 50 cents, if that's what they needed to get to, and they save 50 cents, it's a public negotiation. The governor's never going to say, okay, that's good by you.
Cuomo and Christie knew everything about the need for toll revenue for whatever purpose,
sure,
good or bad. The notion that they inflated the ask so they could come in and look like heroes is unworthy. That's the best I can say.
But it's a public negotiation.
It's
That's
not
nothing
a public
unusual.
Negotiation.
Developers do it every day when they want to build 100 units right now, and they get 80. That's nothing unusual.
But that's an adversarial. You don't negotiate between the guy who was running the Port Authority and the board that's rubber
You don't think raising
it.
taxes on people is adversarial? I'm going to raise your taxes,
no.
and it's a negotiation?
There is a difference.
This is an agency that he controlled. I am shocked to learn there's gambling in Casablanca. I mean, at some point, you just shake your head. Look, the bigger problem is that toll increase went to finance the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. You can like that or dislike it, but it's not legal. And what's going on here is these documents are coming out.
I don't know about the legalities. I frankly wonder why the Port Authority is there half the time. I agree with you. Why do we have a government agency raising these tolls and use them for other things?
We passed a law called the Public Authorities Reform Act. It imposed a fiduciary duty on people like Sampson.
Right.
It has an outside independent authorities budget office checking everything. It has a website where everything's out in real time. It changed the way these things work in New York. Jersey failed to adopt the law. I called Chris Christie's office in 2010 and said, why don't you think about this? I never heard back. The issue here is reform of the Port Authority, not just scandal mongering.
I agree. The Port Authority's been broken for decades. I don't question that.
But the bigger, wider question, Governor Christie has been lucky so far. Now, he will say he's telling the truth and that he's done nothing wrong. He's lucky that one of his top aides hasn't flipped yet, that the U.S. attorney investigating this, that's the key question.
But I can
the federal
say, Dominic,
prosecutor, go ahead.
there may be nothing to flip over. Let's figure that out, too.
Yeah, but, I mean, okay, but it doesn't look that way. I mean, would you agree?
No, I would agree with that.
Don't give them any place to land on.
Okay, okay.
Say yes,
so
maybe it wasn't possible.
Okay.
And then everybody will get the message.
Is there a
Okay,
shut up or shut
okay.
up date in all of
No.
this?
No.
The
There is.
federal
3 years from now when he's out of
The
office.
federal
if he's no longer governor.
investigation is a process of squeezing people at this level
Hard.
to get to the people at the level above.
Right.
That's what's going on.
You know-
The FBI didn't show up at this guy's house because
To
they
ask
because they
what
were
time it goes to
interested.
bed.
And
in-
remember, we don't. It's almost like the investigation into Hillary Clinton. You start out with one issue, and it quickly Hillary and Bill Clinton, and it quickly goes into something else. And so everything these individuals have done, every type of shady deal, any possible illegality, it's going to come up.
I'm curious, Don, because when the bridge scandal first broke, it was reported, I think we covered it in September after the Wall Street Journal did it. My first reaction was this just feels like a dirty trick that you use against a political enemy, and it turned out to be something much more than that. My first reaction about the toll increase thing was also dirty trick. It's a way to make our guy look better. And I also put it in terms of, didn't Cuomo just come in and lower the toll on the Verrazano Bridge and sort of make himself look like a champion in that regard too? Does this feel dirty trick, or does this feel like it's something more than that to you?
It feels politics as usual, to be honest.
Dirty trick is very different. I wouldn't go that far with it. I would just say
There's until you see the emails, which is what's beginning to happen, because AAA got a discovery order from the judge, and these documents are starting to leak out. You won't know how bad it was. Fair enough. We ought to withhold judgment, even for Chris Christie. But you know, your instincts tell you there's something going to come out of here that's going to be just ghastly.
All right,
But nothing yet towards the governor.
I just want to say this one thing.
You're right.
Notice Christie's not telling people shut up anymore. Notice all of a sudden he's had an attitude adjustment now that he's on the ropes. Notice that?
Not the ropes. When there's a federal,
he's on the ropes.
No, when there's a federal,
he's on the ropes.
it would be called
He's
witness
one
tampering,
step
as
of
our
being
attorney would
removed
tell
from
us.
office.
But
He's on
Dominic,
the ropes.
you cannot witness tamper,
And the presidential
so you can't go to
campaign,
him.
goodbye.
And we come in to take a break. Up next, the midterms cometh, and one thing seems clear this election year. If the election is about President Obama, that's bad news for Democrats. If it's about the issues, though, there could be some surprises in store. Latest poll numbers are next.